Today, we are going to try something I've actually never done before and thought it would be a cool way to present the discussion about supplements in a new perspective. In this case, I'm going to make the ultimate fitness supplement tier list. And I know how you fellow kids love them tier lists, and to prove to myself that I'm still hip, I thought why not give it a shot myself. Before we start, I do want to make it clear that although I will try to make this as educational and objective as possible, for the most part, this is for entertainment purposes. You're going to agree with some points and disagree with others, and that's okay. My rankings, like my usual content, is based on research and scientific literature, which I know that you and even myself don't always agree with. But for fairness sake, I'll keep my experiences out of it as much as I can. Also, unlike 99% of my other videos, I'm going to go completely off script for this one because I'll likely make adjustments as I go. The only fully scripted part is what you've heard so far. But enough with this scripted rambling, let's get started. Actually, this part is scripted too. I just want to make it clear that there is a ton of supplements out there and I can't possibly cover them all in a single video without it being 3 hours long. I'm going to cover 20 of the more popular fitness supplements. I know I'll be missing a few big ones, but maybe I can add them in a future video. Okay, now for real, let's get started. Welcome to the first fitness supplement tier list brought to you by yours truly, Picturefit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's going to be a little bit different from what I usually make. No scripted nonsense. We're just going to wing it and see how this all stacks up. So I do have my 20 supplements here. I already kind of mixed it. It was alphabetical order. I don't really want to present things in alphabetical order, so let's just mix it a little bit more so it looks very randomized, and then I'm just going to start stacking them into the tier list. Now, let's first look at the actual tiers that we have. We have S tier. Almost everyone should take it. So any supplement that I think it's really good, really good. Usually people cannot get enough from their nutrition. It probably belongs up here. So to be honest, not a lot's gonna be up here. There's just not that many supplements that are like, oh my god, you gotta take it. That's just the truth about supplements. We'll see exactly how it stacks up though. A tier, very straightforward, good and consistent, has very good benefits, and we do have consistent, reliable data to show that it has those benefits. So B tier, same concept here, but the benefits are a little bit less. Okay benefits, but at least we have good data showing that it's reliable. Just consider the A tiers first before you take the B tiers. Pretty much that's the case for all the tiers, right? So C tier, same concept, okay benefits, kind of like marginal benefits, but X. So when I say X, I'm just gonna explain exactly why I think it's okay, but this reason. So a good example for this would be like something like magnesium would be like a C tier, but X. So it's only okay as far as the benefits, but usually for people that are deficient in magnesium, or it's only okay, but it's mainly for health reasons, not much so for fitness reasons. So explanations like that will happen for a lot of these supplements that fall into C tier. So I'll make sure I'll explain it so you guys don't get lost too much, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, D tier, not great, needs more data. Pretty straightforward. Anything that doesn't have many good benefits or just doesn't seem to be a really good fitness supplement, or it just needs more data. It might have some promising preliminary data, but it just doesn't have enough to really warrant it being recommended or being in a higher C tier, B tier, so on. To be honest with you, we're gonna see a lot of supplements falling into this D tier because that's just kind of the name of the game when it comes to supplements. A lot of things just don't have a lot of data, or it just doesn't seem to be very beneficial when we do get data for it, and that's how supplements are. F tier, very straightforward. If it sucks, doesn't do anything good for you, might actually be detrimental for you, or might be dangerous for you to take, definitely falls into F tier. Again, looking at this here, we probably don't have anything here that's really F tier worthy. I think everything, so for the most part, is safe enough to take, so we're probably gonna have this empty, but we'll see how it goes. If we add something here, I'll make sure I'll be very clear as to why it'll be F tier and not something else. But that's it. Let's get started. We're gonna mix this up just a little bit more because I kind of want to see a very randomized order here. We're good here. Let's get started with BCAAs. If you guys know my content, you know that BCAAs for sure is all the way in probably the middle. C tier. Yeah, it's a solid C tier. For those of you unaware what BCAAs are, they are branch-chain amino acids containing essential amino acids like leucine, isoleucine, and valine. These are very important muscle-growing amino acids, so it makes sense to think that you should take it for a supplement, especially leucine, probably the most important BCAA. But when we actually look at the data, yes, it does seem that BCAAs perform better than if you take nothing at all, but when it compared to other supplements that have BCAAs as well, like whey protein or even plant proteins, casein, usually BCAAs do lose very markedly to these other supplements. Like whey for sure is better than BCAAs. It's more important to have all the essential amino acids together instead of isolating them like in BCAAs. So if you want to get your branched chain amino acids, it's almost always better to get it from your awesome protein powders. That's the reason why BCAAs sit solidly in this C tier. Now, people do say that they prefer taking BCAAs because sometimes it tastes very nice. So it's nice to have this sugary bomb whenever you're working out. If that's the case for you, then you can keep taking it. Just don't expect it to be like very, very effective, or at least not as effective as whey protein and all that stuff. Don't use it as a substitute for protein powder, or don't use it as a substitute for protein in general. C tier for sure. Okay, next up is sodium bicarbonate. For you guys not familiar with sodium bicarbonate, it's actually baking soda. And I would probably put it D tier. Yeah, it's baking soda, right? Who thought it would be a good idea to have baking soda as a fitness supplement? Apparently people that really want your money by selling you baking soda as a supplement. But overall, we just don't see a lot of benefit when it comes to sodium bicarbonate supplementation. There are some cases where it might improve low intensity cardio, especially towards the end of the actual exercise, so towards exhaustion. Overall, we don't see like an increase in fat breakdown. We don't see no increase of metabolism, which is what is advertised for. So unfortunately, it's not really a good supplement to take. It just either needs more research or you just skip it. You really don't need it. Sodium bicarbonate, it might have a little benefit again, but really nothing close to like we'll see in A tier and B tier and so on. Yeah, D tier, solid D tier. All right, next up is arginine, which is a conditionally essential amino acid, which means that your body can create this amino acid by itself, but sometimes during really stressful situations, it just doesn't make enough, and supplementation or just getting it from your food might be important. As far as where it goes into tier list, it's probably right here in D tier as well. Arginine is popular, is advertised to be a nitric oxide booster, which helps with blood flow and hopefully helps you with that muscle pump that you can feel during your training. However, although our body does make nitric oxide out of arginine, it doesn't always increase nitric oxide production. So it's like taking a supplement, which is a building block for something important like nitric oxide, but your body's not really good at using the supplement to build what it's supposed to be building. This might be due to the bioavailability of arginine supplementation, which makes it a little bit more difficult for your body to absorb it and actually show the benefits that it might lead to. Because of that, it's not really that great of a supplement. You might be able to skip this as well. Maybe you can try and see if it works for you. I mean, again, you can get it from food. And if you are looking for a nitric oxide booster, there's actually one supplement here that's clearly better than arginine. We'll get there when we get there. All right, next up is HMB. Here we go. We're seeing a pattern here. HMB, very clearly a D tier, even behind, yeah, we'll put it behind sodium bicarbonate as well. HMB is short for beta-hydroxybeta-methylbutyrate, which is a metabolite of leucine, which we described as a BCAA. Even though leucine is integral for muscle growth, having it as a metabolite in terms of HMB hasn't really shown to be very effective. Especially for trained individuals, we see less of an effect when they take it. Some cases, we do see a little bit more effect when you are untrained, but again, it's really kind of unreliable data. We do need more information, more research to really see if it has any benefit. So I think it sits pretty correctly here in the D tier. Will I say it's worse than arginine and sodium bicarbonate? Probably. I think it belongs at the bottom of D tier for now. All right, next up is ashwagandha. I'm gonna put this at, I'll say, low C tier. So the benefits of ashwagandha is actually pretty decent. It's more so like a health supplement more than actual fitness, but the actual benefits might have some impact on your overall fitness and performance. It's usually known as an anti-stress, anti-anxiety supplement. So in that case, it can help you feel a little bit less stressed, a little bit less anxious, maybe can translate to better lifting, maybe. Another way it might be connected to fitness is that there does seem to be some improvements for sleep and sleep quality, especially for those that do suffer from poor sleep, which is very, very common, by the way. So in that case, again, it's more indirectly related to fitness, and that's why it's more C tier, but the data on those benefits do seem to be pretty reliable. So in that case, I think it does belong in the C tier rather than the D tier. As far as performance benefits, there does seem to be some data to show some improvements in anaerobic training, but to be honest, it's not very clear. It's more so of those indirect health benefits that might lead to better fitness benefits overall, especially sleep. If ashwagandha can help you with that, then that's great. I think it's solid C tier. And next up is CLA, another beautiful, beautiful D tier. As far as where in the D tier, I would say, Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna shift this a little bit. I'll put CLA behind HMB actually. So we have an even lower D tier. And the reason why CLA is in the lower D tier is that, again, the effects does not seem to be very significant. It's advertised as a fat loss agent, but we just don't see that being the case. It's supposed to like reduce fat buildup, promote fat burn, but every time we see that in the research, it's very insignificant, and in some cases, it even led to weight gain. So that's not good. Is that F tier? That could be F tier. We're not gonna go that far just yet. And also, we do see one data point where it shows that it might promote satiety, which is the feeling of fullness. And in the study, we actually saw that it reduced calorie intake by 500 calories, which is huge. But again, that's really preliminary data. We don't have a lot of strong data. That's why this is a D tier. Needs more data. Sit pretty there, Mr. D tier. You belong there, CLA. All right, up next, glutamine, D tier as well. Very clear D tier. I would not say it's not as bad as CLA. Is it as bad as HMB or worse than HMB? Probably not. Glutamine, D tier. Again, look at the D tier. It's just growing. We haven't even touched B, A, or S yet. What's going on, man? But really, glutamine, I think it's a solid D tier for sure. It's again one of those cases where it's a conditionally essential amino acid. Your body can make it, but sometimes in very high stressful situations, you just cannot make enough. Usually for glutamine, that means being sick, like illnesses or having very serious burns on your body, which you need the extra glutamine for recovery. So these are very severe and very, very stressful situations. For the most part, as far as exercise, we might see some benefit if you are doing very, very long-term cardio, like 2 hours of long-term endurance activity before we really see any benefit in glutamine supplementation. As far as muscle growth or preventing muscle degradation, we just don't see that being the case, or at least to no significant degree. On top of that, you can usually get glutamine from your food. It's in very many food sources: dairy, eggs, veggies, fish. It's a very, very, very common in food. That being the case, I think it does sit pretty solidly in D tier. I'll probably put it above before sodium bicarbonate though, so it's not as bad as baking soda. I think it's solidly in the D tier, probably not going anywhere. And now DHEA. So out of the whole list here, DHEA is the only one that I really don't have an in-depth analysis on. I really never did a lot of research on the supplement, but it's been very popular from you guys asking me to cover DHEA. I know there's, every time I read my comments, especially for supplement videos, you guys always ask about DHEA. I thought I might as well just add it to this tier list, even though I don't have a very strong understanding of this supplement. But that being said, I'm gonna judge my ranking mostly on what I've read on examine.com, which is a great, check out examine.com. They got really, really cool stuff, very objective as well, and just very, very detailed information on anything supplements. So I'm gonna kind of rely very heavily on what they're saying so far. Of course, if I do more in-depth analysis in the future and then that changes my mind a little bit, then I'll be sure to adjust where DHEA might fall. But based on what I've heard from Examine and based on what I just understand as far as like what is advertised to be, I think it also solidly belong in the D tier. I will put it maybe in front of, okay, it might be, yeah, I'll put in front of the other D tiers. But for the most part, DHEA is advertised as a testosterone booster. It's also advertised as an anti-aging supplement. So in those cases, that would be great. As far as fitness, of course, increasing testosterone is very important, or at least having higher testosterone levels, which might help with muscle growth and all that fun stuff. Now, DHEA is a substrate for testosterone and DHT. But as far as the data go, again, it doesn't seem to increase testosterone all that effectively, at least not all that reliably. Usually when we see positive data on DHEA, it's almost always in menopausal women. So when we do see data on more young adults, more resistance trained individuals, it's kind of spotty as far as increasing testosterone. And there's no very clear data as far as increasing muscle mass, increasing fat loss, and all that fun stuff, increasing strength. I think it still belongs in the D tier as far as the data goes. It just doesn't seem to have enough information to really warrant it to move up any further. And now we have ZMA. ZMA, I'm gonna put, I would put it in the D tier, just knowing exactly the history of ZMA, that it seems to be very shady, but it does have like 3 very important micronutrients to consider. So let's put it in the C tier. Yeah, I think probably in front of ashwagandha. Yeah, maybe in front of BCAA as well. So ZMA, if you guys don't know, it's actually 3 very important micronutrients. Z is zinc, M is magnesium, and A is vitamin B6. Very important health supplements again. So, but again, it is really good supplements to take. And there is that connection to testosterone as well, as boosting testosterone just a little bit. But I wouldn't really rely on just the supplements to increase your testosterone. Usually, if you need to increase testosterone, go do it about the more natural ways, like better exercise, staying in shape, shape, getting better sleep, and so on. But ZMA does have that connection because these micronutrients do have that connection to testosterone. The reason why I'm not a really big fan of ZMA overall is because the research behind it is indeed has a little bit of shadiness to it. One study showed that it increased strength. I believe it was in the bench press 1 rep max. It increased it by 250%. That's wild. Unfortunately, in that study, we found out that it was both authored and funded by the same person and company that owns the patent to ZMA. So we might have a little bit of a conflict of interest there. You know what? Just speaking about it is getting me a little bit mad. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it a little bit lower. Yeah, behind BCAAs. But as far as independent studies, we do not see that crazy increase in strength. No big increases in lean mass. No big increases in fat loss and so on. Overall, we just don't see it having the benefit outside of some studies that seem to have a very strong conflict of interest. And to be honest, you can get lots of these micronutrients from your food. Take that into consideration. I would avoid ZMA for the most part unless you know those deficiencies are a thing for you. Then you might want to consider taking it. I'm not a big fan of it personally. ZMA, C tier. Next up is citrulline malate. We finally have something that is not just C and D. We have a solid B tier. Citrulline malate is one of the very few ergogenic substances that you can actually supplement. And good thing is that it does seem to be very consistent and reliable on the actual effect and benefits. We see an increase in nitric oxide. Again, arginine is supposed to increase nitric oxide as well, but citrulline malate does a much better job of increasing nitric oxide, which increases blood flow and also help you with that muscle pump. Perfect thing to consider to take as a pre-workout along with other stimulants or other ergogenic supplements. Not bad at all. B tier, solid B tier. Next up is testosterone. If you guys seen my previous video, which I didn't release too long ago, you would know that this is also a solid D tier. It's gonna be a little bit harder to know exactly where in the D tier I'm gonna put this. I think I'll put it there. Yeah, I'll put it there. Okay, I think that's fair. No. Okay, right there. Testosterone is actually a form of ecdysteroid, which shares a very similar structure to testosterone. Because of that, it's often advertised to have testosterone benefits, kind of like increasing performance, strength, and overall muscle growth. But some people say that is not really the case. Like, it is not because it has this connection to testosterone or shares this very similar structure to testosterone. It's just that it does have these benefits like performance, strength, overall muscle growth. But unfortunately for testosterone, it's probably the only thing on this list, all 20 supplements, that really has no clear intervention trials, studies done on humans that show it actually has any benefit or really anything. The only information we have is on other ecdysteroids like ecdysterone. And when we look at ecdysterone research, we see very weak data in terms of having any benefit to muscle growth, leaning out, strength, and overall just performance or anything really. So the only reason testosterone at the moment is so popular is that there are some fitness influencers out there that really pushes this product, and it became very popular, and now it's kind of like the new fad at the moment. Ecdysteroids in general has been around for quite a while. It comes and goes, and it always kind of fades out of popularity because it doesn't seem to have very clear data on it first and foremost, and it just doesn't seem to help a lot of people. I would say it does belong very clearly in the D tier, especially having no data. I might actually move it all the way back here. Not only does it need more data, it just needs data, period. It's probably the only one on this list, all 20, that has the most potential to move up the list. But to be honest, I don't think it's gonna move much. It might move more laterally rather than vertically. But for now, I will say it's back here just because we don't have enough data to move it anywhere else. It needs more data, for sure. Now we have beta-alanine again. Oh, we're finally making some strides towards the top. I would put beta-alanine, I think it's a solid B tier as well. So yeah, I'll put it in B tier, right behind citrulline malate. But to be honest, these are kind of interchangeable. But I'll say beta-alanine. I'll put it right here. I think it's good. Beta-alanine is actually good for increasing carnosine production, which is very important in acid buffering. So that can help prevent acid buildup in your muscles, which hopefully can reduce fatigue and help you move and do more during your exercises. Anaerobic performance and high rep training probably benefit the most with beta-alanine. You don't have to take it as a pre-workout. What most most important is that you are getting it daily. But overall, it's really good. It's better than taking carnosine supplements themselves, which I don't have on this list, but it is better than carnosine itself because it's more easily absorbed by the muscle fibers. It does cause this tingling and itching sensation that you might feel called paresthesia, but usually it does go away after you take it for a while. So take that into consideration. I think beta-alanine, solid B tier, definitely belongs up here, not C tier, probably not A tier as well. I think it's solid B tier. Caffeine is next, and caffeine is the first A tier on the list, and for good reason. Caffeine, the most widely used stimulant in the world. It does have very strong ergogenic benefits. If you ever taken caffeine, coffee, tea, or anything else, you might feel that jolt of energy after you consume it, and it's a real effect. It's very consistent, and it can be very beneficial to your performance. Overall, it's probably more beneficial for like aerobic performance and maybe high rep training, but overall, it does seem to have performance for everything, at least a little bit. But the unfortunate downside of caffeine is that you can build a tolerance to it, so it might not be as effective if you take it every single day for a long period of time. You just build a higher tolerance. You might even have a naturally high tolerance to begin with, so you might be a non-responder to caffeine. So take that into consideration. Also, it might keep some people up during the nighttime. Take that into consideration. You don't want to take it too late, especially if you're very sensitive to caffeine, and you do want to cycle it over time. So you need to come off of caffeine if you're building too high of a tolerance. But overall, the effects are clear, and we have really good, consistent data to back it up. So caffeine, A tier. So next up is magnesium. We already covered ZMA, which has magnesium, so we know magnesium also has health benefits. Because of that, it does sit in C tier very clear. I'll put it behind ZMA just because, ZMA has more than magnesium. But magnesium, again, overall, a good health supplement. It can help reduce blood pressure. It can improve insulin sensitivity, so it might be good to take just as a health supplement. There is that loose connection to testosterone as well. As far as like other fitness factors, we have some data showing that it might be good for aerobic capacity, which might help you with a cardio performance. But we do need a little bit more data on that. Overall, is more so to have that benefit of health. Might help a little bit with sleep quality as well, especially with people with poor sleep. So not a bad supplement to take for health with those indirect effects on fitness. So yeah, I think it's a solid C tier. Not bad at all. And finally, we have our first protein powder on the list here. And if you guys know this channel well enough, you know that it's not F tier, not D tier, not C tier. B tier? Maybe A tier. Definite A tier. Now, the reason why it's not S tier, even though I had that bias of getting your protein, is because if you can get your protein from your food, then you really don't need to get protein supplements, and casein is no exception. Casein, though, can be a very good protein source. It has a very strong amino acid profile. It has those BCAAs, the leucine, the isoleucine, the valine. It has all that really good stuff that you need to build muscle. It's known more so as a slow-releasing protein powder because it does create like a bolus within your digestive tract. It's kind of popular for people to take it during nighttime towards their bedtime. The belief is that because you are asleep, you do want that slow releasing protein to be absorbed as you are in your recovery phase. As far as data on that, we don't really see that being the case. What matters most, and will always matter most, is that you just simply get enough protein. If you're getting enough protein, it usually does not matter when you take your protein powder or take your other protein sources. It just matters that you get enough. So make sure you cover that base first before you consider anything else. But overall, it's still a really great protein source, definitely an A tier, and you'll probably see a lot of other A tier protein powders sitting right next to it. And next we have is carnitine. Carnitine, unfortunately, another D tier supplement. I would say it's between arginine and glutamine. Carnitine actually has 3 different forms that people supplement. We have Alcar, we have GPLC, and we have LCLT, which is probably the most popular in fitness circles because it has a better absorption rate. It's usually advertised as a nitric oxide booster, so like arginine and citrulline malate. But unfortunately, it just doesn't have as much an effect as citrulline. And when we do look at the studies as far as actual performance, we see some increases in acute power output, but long-term power output doesn't seem to show any benefit. So carnitine is pretty much only okay, and usually you do have to take a lot of our carnitine, like 15 grams daily, to really see any strong benefits. And even then, it's really not that great, especially compared to like the citrulline malate. It's just another one of those okay supplements that have like very marginal benefits. Might be worth trying, but really nothing to really consider, especially when you have other supplements that are very clearly better. And usually if you do get enough protein, you're likely to get enough carnitine as well. So carnitine, D tier, I think it belongs exactly right there. And then whey protein, This is very clear. It's going up here. Does it go ahead of casein though? I think so, yeah. I'll put ahead of casein just a little. To be honest, it probably boils down to price for you. So in your region, if you have cheaper casein than you have whey, then I would suggest you get the casein instead. Vice versa, if you have cheaper whey, get the whey instead, and so on. Now, this is considered the fast-releasing protein, while casein is the slower-releasing protein. So people recommend that you take it around your workouts, especially like 30 minutes to an hour after your workout, so you can take advantage of all that muscle protein stimulation that you're seeing, and then that way you can feed the muscles and so on. But to be honest, again, what's really important is you making sure you get enough protein in general. If you're knocking out that base itself, it doesn't really matter the timing. You might see slight benefit timing it a little bit closer to your workouts, but to be honest, if you're not knocking out your protein intake in general, it doesn't really matter. Make sure you figure that out first. But again, A tier, 100%. And then we have creatine, HCl, and others. Actually, I'm gonna move creatine monohydrate ahead of that first, because I want to cover this before we jump into creatine, HCl, or other creatine forms. Now, creatine monohydrate. This is probably the only S tier that we're gonna see on this list. Well, we're almost done. So it's clear that's the only S tier, and I don't think anything else will even come close. And it's not because it's better in effects of whey protein or casein protein or just protein powder in general, but assuming that you do have your protein figured out, creatine supplementation by far makes the most sense. I think everyone, at least almost everyone, should consider taking it because it does have very consistent and reliable data on it. It's actually one of the most researched supplement ever, and the benefits are very clear and very, very consistent, very reliable. It increases performance. It can increase anaerobic training. It can add a few more reps to your lifts. It's really just very consistent. Of course, there's still non-responders to creatine, just pretty much like anything else you take here. There are going to be some cases that you just don't respond really well to it, so you probably don't benefit from supplementation. But for many people that don't have this saturation, creatine supplementation makes a lot of sense. It also has some connection to improving cognitive benefits, so that might be something to consider as well. And overall, it is pretty safe. It's not a steroid, which you might have heard one of those myths out there, that creatine is a steroid, don't take it. It's not. You might have a little bit of water bloating, so keep that in mind, but overall it is very safe, and creatine monohydrate is usually the cheapest version out there, and it's probably the most studied version out there, so it's very consistent, very reliable. Creatine monohydrate belongs in the S. And then we have creatine, HCl, and others, pretty much all the other forms of creatine out there. I will put this in A tier just because it is still creatine. Well, usually it's advertised to be better than creatine monohydrate itself, but unfortunately we don't have data showing that being the case. At best, it performs gram for gram as well as creatine monohydrate. Because of that, it does belong in A tier. But if in your region, if it's more expensive than creatine monohydrate, then for sure, just get creatine monohydrate. Save your money. It has about the same effects. Now in the future, if we do have other creatines that show to be better than creatine monohydrate on a gram for gram basis, then that probably will move up into the S tier as well. If for some reason you don't have creatine monohydrate around your area, the other creatine forms might be worth taking. And finally, we have one more supplement here, and it is vegan protein, plant proteins. Well, protein is still protein, and it belongs in the A tier. I will put it behind whey and casein. I think it is solidly behind those because usually plant proteins do not have as good of an amino acid profile compared to whey and casein, especially if your plant protein is only one source of plant. So like only rice protein. If it's only one mixture, usually it doesn't have that amino acid profile, especially for BCAAs, leucine, sometimes other things like methionine. It just doesn't have enough of these other amino acids that are very important to have. So plant proteins generally are not as good as whey and casein. However, if you do find a plant protein that has a mixture like rice and pea protein mixed together, then that actually might rival things like whey and casein. So in that case, it is still protein. What matters most, again, is making sure you get enough protein in general, and you can do that with plant protein, even single source plant proteins, because that's more important than getting suboptimal levels of protein intake overall. So again, definite A tier. We have A tier for sure. Proteins, great. Not S tier, not exactly S tier, especially if you can't get your protein from other sources, but A tier, 100%. And that, my friends, wraps up the first Picturefit fitness supplement tier list. Check it out. Not a bad spread. Not too surprising that D tier has by far, the most supplements there, because let's be honest, there's a lot of funky and shady supplements out there. Not saying all of these down here are that case. They just don't have that much of an effect. These might move up if we see more data, especially like testosterone, maybe even DHEA. I think DHEA, I might have put it a little bit too high, just because because it just needs more data. I'll say, yeah, I'll put it there. But still, it applies to all of this, even some cases of C tier. Actually, C tier is not bad. ZMA is probably the only questionable one here. But again, zinc, magnesium, vitamin B6, not bad micronutrients to have. So it does sit here because of that case. But not bad. B tier, only 2, but pretty decent too. But of course, you want to consider all these other ones in the A and S tiers first before you consider B tiers. But overall, really great supplements, especially S tier, A tier, and B tier. I think these are pretty decent supplements for anyone to really consider. If you want to get very serious with your fitness and you want to start looking into supplements, these are not bad at all. That is it, guys. Let me know what you think. I know for sure you guys are probably thinking,
Mr. Picturefit, you skipped this supplement. Mr. Picturefit, why didn't you cover this supplement?
let me know what supplement you want to see in this list in the future. But let me know what you guys think for sure. I do want to expand this list and of course make adjustments if more data, more patch notes come out. We want to make those changes as we go. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a supplement thumbs up and share it with your tier list loving friends. Subscribe for more. As always, thank you for watching and get your A tier protein.